What I like about Dune. The book is nice. The story's about a desert world covered in worms and spice. Yeah. Jessica whispering in Paul's ear, don't you know the mind killer is fear? Because it's true. That's what I like about Dune. So a couple days, I finished reading Dune like a week or so ago. And over the weekend I was like, oh fuck. I didn't take a lot of notes on the book. I need to write it down so I can make a thing about it, like talk about what I liked. So Monday night, I'm sitting down, writing a lot of my notes. I was like, as I'm trying to be like, all right, what do I like about Dune? And the idea for a really bad song parody popped into my head. I was like, that's so stupid. I have to do it. And literally the first thing in my notes is just bad song parody. So, sorry. You could tell. I was like, this is so dumb. Like, I couldn't get through it with a straight face. But it's done. So I can actually talk about what I liked about Dune, because I do like quite a few things about Dune. I will say, me personally, I liked the world of Dune more than I liked the narrative of Dune. I still like the narrative. I do like the shit that happens in the plot. I do like the characters. But it's the world, and not just of Arrakis itself, but a lot of just the different, like, just a lot of the cool shit in Dune. I'm like, this is why I love reading it. I love exploring this world of Arrakis, of the Empire, of, how do you pronounce it? The Ben Gesserit? Gesserite? I'm not 100% sure, so I'm probably just gonna call them witches. Like, I know it's not magic, so it's not really witches, but you kind of know what I mean. But anyway, so getting into, like, the things I loved, starting with all the shit about the world, and then I'll get into the narrative, is Arrakis itself. To me, Dune is one of those settings, excuse me, or it's one of those stories where the setting feels like it's a character. Arrakis, to me, I was like, I almost get a sense of personality from Arrakis. It feels like a very harsh, strict, but loving parent. Like, I remember... Sorry, I heard something. I think my cat's about to, like, scuttle into the room. Oh, he did! Hey, what's up, Bahamut? It reminds me of a conversation from Symphogear, weirdly enough. It's when Maria is talking to the old lady about tomatoes, and how it's like, yeah, you know, like, if they grow in an environment that's too nice or too soft, the tomato's not going to come out quite right. Like, it's not going to taste as good. It needs to have a harsh environment, and that's what makes it stronger. In the context of Symphogear, I don't think that analogy worked quite so well. But to me, that's kind of what Arrakis is. It's like, I am making, like, the people who live here are living in a shithole. It's kind of notable that the Fremen who all live here, I think that's how you pronounce it, because it's one E. If it was two E's, like, oh, it's the Freemen, but there's one, so I think it's the Fremen. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well, but I think that's correct. Anyways, it's telling that their end goal is, we want to change Arrakis' fucking bios. like, it's this big-ass shitty desert world, and our goal, which we're not going to see in our lifetime, or our children's lifetime, or their children's lifetime, etc., etc., etc. But the goal is to turn this place, like, make it not a shithole anymore. Like, that's how bad Arrakis is. I think it's kind of funny. But these are very tough people. They're very mentally strong people. I don't remember the name of the Emperor's soldiers, like the Sadukar, it's something close to that. These are like the toughest soldiers, the baddest dudes in the entire universe. And the Fremen, like, look at them as a joke. Like, they're not a threat to us. What I think is interesting, it's not just like an Endor thing, where you're like, oh, okay, you know, the Ewoks aren't scared because, you know, they really know how to use the environment to their advantage, and they're, like, doing shit in the trees and whatnot. The Fremen are definitely using Arrakis to their advantage, but it's also like, no, in a straight fight, the Fremen are just kicking the Zadukar's asses. They're not scared of them. Like, we're from Arrakis. We have to survive in this shithole. why the fuck should we be scared of you? And I like that. And I feel like Arrakis itself, it's like the more someone adapts to Arrakis and kind of respects the planet almost seems to respect them back. Like, an example I can think of is near the, I guess, there will be full spoilers for the book. I'll give a quick countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're in full spoiler mode. During the climax, I remember there's this, like, huge desert storm that ends up showing up. And it completely saves, like, I don't think it was necessarily, like, dude, like, without this, Paul would have been fucked. But it came at a really clutch moment. And then as Paul and Jessica are escaping, kind of at the end of Act 1, there's another huge storm that does help them out. When Kynes is dying, he does still get killed. Like, it is a worm that kills him. But it's almost like, Arrakis, I'm gonna give you a good death. I'm gonna give you the death, like, a death that you can kind of appreciate. It's a strict parent, but it's still a loving parent, and I kind of dug that a lot. Another aspect that I really liked is the Fremen culture. It's very violent, it's very efficient, but there's still this very strong sense of community and respect. For example, you can challenge someone to a duel, it seems like pretty much at any time and for kind of any reason. It can be like, I want your wife. I'm going to fight you. We're going to fight to the death. And if I win, I get your wife. And if you win, well, I guess you get all my shit too. Like, that's how they determine succession. I mean, I guess, I don't know what actually happens if the previous leader dies outside of a succession duel. But I feel like with Fremen culture, it's like, we never let it get to that point. But, like, if I challenge you, I guess if I challenge Bahamut for control of the house, and Bahamut kills me. I mean, that's a weird way of saying, because I don't control the house, Clay owns the house. So let me say it like that, Clay owns the house, so if I challenge him and I kill Clay, sorry Clay, now I own the house. But on top of that, even though it's like, alright, that's pretty violent, it's pretty fucked up. There's also the fact that if someone dies, they don't just bury them, like, they specifically, I don't remember how in-depth they explained, like, the process of it. I think they kind of did. Is, we take the water from their body. It's like, yeah, we're not just gonna bury them, like, there's useful shit in there. Or it's like, yo, this person is dying. We're not gonna be able to get them to safety soon enough. It makes more sense to just kill them and take their water. It's efficient. It's pretty cold. But again, there's a very strong sense of community. When someone dies in one of those duels, like, one of my favorite parts of the book is the funeral, where Paul has a duel with a guy named Janus, who's like, you know, like, I think this guy's a piece of shit. You know, I don't think we should let these outsiders in. You know, I think our leader is being too soft. You know, this guy kind of insulted me. Like, I'm going to throw hands with him. And Paul has never killed a man before. Like, he's very well trained, but like, I don't want to do this. And like, so throughout the duel, it looks like he's playing with Janus and playing with his opponent, and everyone else is kind of like, why is this guy, like, doing this? He's such an asshole. And then at the end, he's like, I've never killed a man before, so I was hesitant to do so. There's a point where he tells Janus, he's like, dude, you're not going to beat me. Do you want to surrender? And the entire Fremen, like, everyone in the tribe's like, what an asshole! I can't believe he says that. And the tribe leader's like, hey, he doesn't understand our ways. Let him have this. There is no surrender. It is a fight to the death. And after Paul kills him, the ceremony is, if I remember correctly, it's like they lay out basically like Janus and all of his effects. And one by one, different people of the tribe will go up and say, I was a friend of Janus. This is like some kind of bond that we had, or like, this is something he did for me. And they take one of the things. And Paul is watching this and he's like, I didn't know him and I fucking killed him. Am I supposed to go up? Like, is that something that they do in Fremen culture? Like, if you don't know him, you're not supposed to go up, or if you killed him, you let everyone else go up. And there's a point where he just notices, like, everyone is staring at me. And Mom already went up and did it. And now she's kind of giving me the look like, you need to do something here, or else it's going to look bad. Okay. So he goes up and he's like, I was a friend of Janice. And I don't remember what he said, but I think it was like, you know, like he taught me what it means to take a life. And then he starts crying. Now, another part of Fremen culture, as I kind of said, it's like, you know, if someone's going to die, we're not going to waste the water. You take the water from their body. Moisture is incredibly important. Fremen rarely fucking cry, because, like, that's useful moisture. We can't afford to lose shit like that. So, even, like, when they're mourning somebody, they don't cry. But what I love about it is when they see Paul crying at that funeral, they don't go like, oh my goodness, he's so weak, he's so soft, he doesn't understand Arrakis. Can you believe this dude is crying? It's not going to bring Janice back. Their response is like, yo, do you see that? He's giving moisture to the dead. That is such a huge sign of respect. We love this dude. Like, one of my favorite scenes, it's like, it's super early on. It's when, like, a Fremen is meeting with Paul's father, with Duke Leto. Is it Leto? Leto? I saw it as Leto. I guess Jared Leto, so yeah, be Leto. And after, like, a conversation, the dude just, like, spits on the floor. All, like, Leto soldiers get up. They're like, you dare disrespect our Duke by spitting in his presence. And then Duncan Idaho, which fucking 10 out of 10 name. He's like, wait. You don't understand. Moisture is the most fucking important thing on Arrakis. What we look at is, you spat in our Duke's presence, is he's offering moisture from his body as a sign of respect. Don't hurt him for that. That's really cool that he did it. Like, I just loved shit like that, man. I thought it was great. And again, like, that sense of community, everything I talked about at the funeral, but then also, Paul is then given Janice's wife and his kids, with the expectation that you now take care of them. It doesn't matter that you were challenged in the duel. What matters is her husband and their father can't provide for them anymore, so now you are supposed to. And I like that. They also kind of talk about it, it's like, yeah, like, Janice dueled a guy for his wife, that's who she is, killed the guy, took the wife, and had a kid with her. That guy had, like, the guy he killed had a son with that same woman, and Janice took him in too. It's like, yeah, like, this is now my son. It doesn't matter that, you know, he's another man's son. I killed him. I look after them. And again, it's not like you're my property now to do with what I want to. There's a little bit of that, because they're like, Paul, if you want to take her as your wife, you can. If you want to keep her on as a servant, you can. If you want to just let her go, you can do that too. So, like, there's a little bit of the property aspect, but it comes across more of, it is your responsibility to look after her, to look after them. And I really like that, because he's talking to her, and he's like, you're not upset that I killed Janice? Like, you don't hate me for it? No, why would I be? You said you were a friend of Janice, and, like, you gave moisture to the dead. I have no problem with that. Like, yeah, it's like, I loved him, but, like, he was a fucking hothead. Like, he did something stupid, and you showed him respect. And then Janice's two kids, they're like, you don't actually see a lot of them in the book, which is kind of a disappointment in hindsight. I was kind of looking forward to that. I was like, all right, Paul now kind of has to be a bit of a father. Let's see where this goes. It really doesn't. But I think it's in the next chapter where, like, they go to some meeting. I think it's when Jessica drinks the water, which I'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, that was actually some really crazy shit with the water, man. But, they go to this meeting, and then Paul's like, he asks the kids to essentially be his bodyguards, you know, to kind of give him something nice to do and whatnot. And he's like, they took it super fucking seriously. They're like, this is our new father. If anyone gives him a look like we're gonna fuck him up, kind of, they're like 10 years old. Like, one's 10, one's 8 or something. And Paul's like, yeah, like, they were super dedicated. Like, this Fremen culture's wild, and I love it. And I love it too. I think it's really cool. So, after that, the next thing we get to is the religion of Dune, which, they do talk about the Bible. Like, they actively will quote the Bible at times, but there's very much its own religion. So you've got the witches, again, the Bene Gesserit, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but that order. And one of their big mantras, fear is the mind killer. And the fucking scene with the box and the Gom Jabbar is another one of my favorite scenes in the book. I feel like I've said that a few times. There's a lot of really good, cool shit in the book. I just really like it. And I love how the big thing of their order is, how do I want to say it? I guess I want to say it's like to see the unseen, or it's like, it's to cut through the bullshit. Like when someone is talking, what are they really trying to say? With the words they use, the tone of voice, what are the things they didn't say? So a lot of Jessica's perspective is her, I don't want to say sussing out, you know, but it's her cutting through the bullshit and having a really keen eye as to what is going on. And because she has trained Paul in that very same thing, Paul can do the same thing. And I just really liked that shit. I thought it was cool. The scene with the water. So the idea is like they're drinking, I believe it was like poison, but I mean, I guess there's a bit of witchness to what they can do, because like she's able to change the water to, instead of being poison, to being like a kind of holy water with just, that's like full of spice. And when she drinks it, she sees, because it was offered to her by the Reverend Mother who was like on her way out. So she's able to see that Reverend Mother's life and the previous one and the previous one and the previous one and the previous one. I'm like, this is fucking cool. I really like it. And she was pregnant at the time. So her daughter also got to see all of that crazy shit. So her daughter is like way more intelligent and advanced and wise than she should be for like a fucking 2-year-old. So let's get to Aaliyah for a second. That is Paul's little sister. That is Jessica's daughter, who is essentially like mentally a fully grown woman despite being 2 years old. And I was talking to my buddy about this. He's like, dude, I don't know how the fuck they're going to adapt this character. Because what he had told me, because I haven't seen the, I almost said David Bowie, that's not right. The David Lynch version, apparently it was like, this is a child with the voice of a fully grown woman. And he's like, that's kind of how I imagine it would go. And I'm like, I think it'd be something like that. In my head, I don't think a book ever describes it like this. But for some reason, I imagine Aaliyah having like this really echoey voice. I don't know why. Maybe it's like, you know, she's seen all this kind of shit, like the wisdom beyond her years. Like that's a way it really comes out when she talks. It's not just that she has the vernacular of an older woman or even the voice of an older woman. But it's like the echo thing kind of makes sense to me. It just does. The scene where she's talking to the Emperor near the end of the book and is like, she just gives no shits about this dude. Like, it was really cool. I liked it a lot. And yeah, when she fucking kills the Baron with the Gom Jabbar, like that was fucking sick. I feel like there was something else I was going to say there, but maybe not. Another aspect about like the religion lore kind of shit is what spice does. Spice is a drug. It can be very addictive, but when Paul takes it, he can see the future. Actually, I don't remember. Is it like that? That's something that all people can do in limited quantities, but Paul's just really strong with it? Or it's just something Paul can do? I can't quite remember. But when he does see the future, the way I understand it is it's not just, this is set in stone, this is what's going to happen, but he can see multiple possibilities at once. But when he does, but even when he sees shit, he can't, like, control it. Like, for example, it's not like, okay, I'm seeing the future, but now I can turn my head to see what's over here to give me a bit more context. It's just like, I'm seeing whatever I'm seeing with no context. And there's this one part, I think it's like the very end, it's either the very end of Act 1 or, yeah, I think it is the very end of Act 1, like right as they escape. And he's like, Mother, I've seen all kinds of shit. I've seen so much shit at once. I've seen shit that has already happened, and I'm seeing so much, I don't know what's real anymore. Like, I don't know if I'm here talking to you right now, or if this is another vision. I remember right before his duel with the Harkonnen kid, was his name, like, it was Fade something, I don't remember, where he's thinking to himself, he's like, I've seen the future. I've seen points in my life that are past this. Yet I don't know if I'm gonna survive here. This feels like a turning point. Like, this feels like if I am going to die, it's here. If I do, and it's a win-win. Because if I win, I survive, and I can keep doing what I'm doing. If I die, my people will, because he's like, you know, if I survive, my people will see me as someone who cannot be stopped. And it's gonna, you know, give them so much, like, feverish praise and shit that we can do anything. And if I die a martyr. And my people are gonna be filled with, like, this feverish praise, like, we have to do all of this for him. So it doesn't matter if I live or die. I'd rather live, but it doesn't matter if I live or die. I have nothing to lose. Let's go. There's another scene where he's talking to one of his friends, and the line that he narrates, he's like, I've now seen a friend turn into a worshiper. And he notes, like, how actually kind of scary that is. And a big point, like, there's this one part of me that looks at Paul, and I'm like, he's like way too powerful. It gets way too powerful, kind of way too quickly. Like, it's over 2 years, but it's a time skip, so you don't really, you see some of it, but not all of it. I'm like, I don't know, like, it's really cool, but it's maybe a bit much. But on the other hand, there's the part of me that goes, his story is not about, like, becoming strong. His story is about a man becoming a messiah, becoming a god, and losing his grip on his humanity. And that one line of, I've now seen a friend become a worshiper, is like, this is what Paul's, at least in book 1, like, this is what Paul's story is in a nutshell. And I really like it and find it really interesting. And I mean, the other parts of the world building that I really like, it's just the politics. You've got the whole, like, the war between the Atreides and the Harkonnens, and how it's like, congratulations, the Harkonnens lost Dune. So now it's going to go to the Atreides family, who don't really want it because they love their home planet of Caladan. Like, do we really want to go to the shithole? No. But on the other hand, think of the opportunity. Like, we now control the spice. We can get in really good with the Emperor, who we don't even fully trust. We feel like the Emperor's putting us here because we're a little too well-liked, and he wants to kind of take us away from our home. Maybe this is his ploy to weaken us. But if we can take his ploy to weaken us and make us stronger, then it's worth it. And also, it lets us one-up the Harkonnens. Why wouldn't we do it? And because the vibe I got from watching the movie, which I watched it when it came out, so it's been a while, is that the Atreides family were just way in over their head. It was a lot like the first season of Game of Thrones, where the Starks are not playing the game. They're just pawns in other people's game. But reading the book, it feels like, no, the Atreides family is playing the game. They understand the risks. They're kind of doing some of their own shit as well. They just lost. They were just out-gambited. And I felt like that made them more interesting. And on top of that, you got, like, I fucking love the Baron. He's an awful piece of shit. Like, holy fuck. It's incredibly satisfying to see him get fucking murked. But he's such an entertaining character, and, like, such an over-the-top, horrible piece of shit. I kind of enjoyed it, and, like, all of his scheming and shit. His relationship with the Emperor, where you don't actually see them interact until, like, very, very close to the end of the book. Like, the last, I don't know, 50 pages or so. But that sense of, I wanted to get rid of the Atreides, because, like, our families have hated each other. The Emperor wanted to get rid of the Atreides because he saw them as a threat. But the Emperor can't let anybody know that he was involved in killing the Atreides. Because if he does, what do you know? Like, the Emperor killed one of, like, the great houses. That's gonna send all the great houses in a tizzy, and they're gonna try to, remove the Emperor. So, like, that can happen to us. That's a problem. So, we're working together, but in a sense, I have the advantage over him because I have that knowledge. But he has the advantage over me because he's the fucking Emperor and with all the influence he has. So there's that, like, delicate balance of, like, how much of my advantage do I try to use without it completely fucking me over? And I think it's super interesting. And, like, his conversations with the Count, who I love this scene when Paul meets the Count and the Emperor kind of gives the Count that look like, hey, go kill Paul for me. And Paul's like, hey, that guy will kill me. I'm actually scared of him. Holy shit. Like, I know I was saying earlier, like, I have nothing to lose. If I win, I win. And if I die, I still win. I don't want to fight that guy. It was just really cool. And, like, another thing I really liked, the relationship between Leto and Jessica. And not just the, the fact that they were... It's a lot of aspects of, like, number one, the fact that she's not his wife, she's his concubine. And the reason for that is, like, no, like, he loves her like a wife. He holds her out as his wife. But he can't marry her, because if he does, then he's taken, and it means he can't get into a political marriage later. And Jessica understands that. She's like, no, I know for all intents and purposes, I'm your wife. If I'm being honest, I would love to be your wife, but I get it. And if you do get married, it's not really going to matter. Like, in terms of, like, I'm not losing out on you. I get it. Like, the trust they have for each other. And how later Leto's like, okay, the Harkonnens are trying to put it in our head that there's a traitor. And they want me to suspect Jessica. I would sooner suspect myself than Jessica. I love her that much. But, whoever the Harkonnens' real spy is, has to think I don't think it's them. So I'm gonna pretend that I think it's Jessica. And I can't tell Jessica, as much as I love her, as much as I trust her, I need her reactions to be authentic. Paul, my son, I'm telling you this. I trust your mother. And if anything happens to me, if the Harkonnens win, God forbid, but if the Harkonnens win, you need to tell her that I never doubted her for a second. I really like that. Like, that's sweet. And it's, like, super fucked up, but it's really sweet. And later in the book, Paul has his relationship with Chani. And Jessica's like, I can't let him fall for her. He needs to marry, like, a highborn woman. He needs to marry, like, a princess or something of like a duchess or some shit. I mean, she's a nice girl, but, I mean, she's just a Arrakis riffraff. This doesn't work for a duke, Paul. And then as the book goes on, she's like, they love each other so much. I can't even bring myself to do it. And I mean, she's like, it might be a thing with, like, me and Leto. Like, it's fine. And then at the end of the book, Paul even, like, he's like, Emperor, here's the thing. You're trash. Like, he's like, you're trash. You've clearly lost. So here's what's going to happen. You can still be Emperor, but you can go have an exile on that one planet you like and never be heard from again. I'm really going to be Emperor, and to prove it, I'm going to marry your daughter. And he even tells Chani, he's like, look, she's going to be my wife. You're my wife. You're the woman I love. You're the woman I'm going to have children with. She is she is a status symbol and nothing more. Which I'm reading that and I'm like, that's really fucked up. And from what I understand in the later books, like, she just gets treated like shit. And I already feel really bad for her. But, the last line of the book is Jessica talking to Chani. And she's like, yeah, take it from me. It doesn't really matter if you're the wife or not. You're the one that has the influence. You're the one that has the power. History is going to remember the concubines. And I was like, it felt like a weird line to end on, But the sentiment makes a lot of sense for Jessica's character and, like, the bond she eventually had with Chani, and I thought it really worked. I guess going over the plot. Sorry, my brain just fucking stopped working for a second. Essentially, the first third of the book is the Atreides family adapting to Arrakis. A bit of the Harkonnen plot, them trying to out-gambit the Harkonnens trying to out-gambit them. Eventually, the Harkonnens win. Yue is the traitor. Leto was killed. Everything goes to shit. Paul and Jessica escape. The second third is Jessica and Paul getting into the Fremen tribe, adapting to the culture, all that stuff. With the final third of the book, really, that's when you really get the, you already get some of the religious aspects of Paul, like doing the Gom Jabbar thing, his visions. The last third, though, is when this is a messiah figure at this point. They don't see him as a man, they see him as a god. And, like, the battle against the Emperor and all that shit. I think it's good. I think it's interesting. One of the things I love, I think my favorite aspect of the story itself is the relationship between Paul and Jessica. Because it's very tight and very tenuous at the same time. Because it's like right after the box thing. He kind of realizes, this is what my mom has been training me for. It's for this old witch cult with their own plans and their own bullshit. I thought my mom was just trying to make me smarter and, make me, as a duke, you need to be able to cut through bullshit. You need to be able to see the truth in any situation, and I'm going to train you in that. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Now I know that I've essentially been manipulated by my own mother, and I resent her a bit for that. But she's still his mother, and he still loves her. He will still go to bat for her, even though there's times, especially at, the end of Act 1, where he's like, I've seen shit, mother. I know that, I know you have a child and you didn't tell anybody about. It's like, I know that you are actually the daughter of the Harkonnen Baron. Bet you didn't know that, Mom. I'm a fucking Harkonnen. What the fuck? And, all that shit. And even in that scene where he's kind of unloading on his mom, Jessica is terrified of him. She loves her son. She is fiercely devoted and loyal to her son. And she's terrified of him because she's seeing this isn't a man anymore. No man should be able to see all that kind of shit. No man should have this level of control over another, over a culture. He's a wild card. I'm terrified of him. But he's still Paul. He's still my Paul. And I just found that dynamic really interesting. And to me, it never stopped being interesting. Just that weird of, I love you, but I hate you, and I love you, but I'm scared of you. But my love is always stronger than my disdain or than my fear. I guess the last thing to say is the ending. With the ending, like I said, it's Paul saying, look, I'm Emperor now. I'm going to marry your daughter, and, I'm going to do, my shit to the entire universe and whatnot. Which I think is a fine ending. It's the kind of ending that... It's the opposite of Mistborn, which I find really, really interesting. The ending of the Final Empire, to me, gives me that sense of, reader, if you want to leave it here, you can. There are some nuggets here that can be explored in the sequels. Maybe when the Lord Ruler was like, you don't know what I've done for you. He might have been telling the truth. He might have been saying some bullshit. If you think he was just saying some bullshit, you can be done here and you're good. If you want to know what he really meant, though, maybe you should read the sequels. And I looked at it, it was like, this feels like this could be a really strong ending for just a one-shot book. But I want to keep going. And, well, we kind of know how that happened. With Dune, the ending is very much, this is part one. This is not a complete novel, or like, it's a complete novel. Like, this is not a complete story. We're setting shit up. There's gonna be a lot more shit. Hope to see you in the next one. But I'm left feeling incredibly satisfied. I'm interested in reading the other Dune books. At some point, I think I will. Probably next year, maybe not next year, depending on like what other shit I'm reading, watching, playing, etc. next year. But I don't feel like I need to, despite the way the narrative ends. It's like, I got what I wanted out of Dune. I just wanted to... Dune was a bucket list item. It's like, this is such a well-known novel, such a well-loved novel, such an inspirational novel. If you love sci-fi and I mean, this is definitely more sci-fi than fantasy, but it's like, you love that kind of sci-fi fantasy world building, you gotta read Dune. And I did, and it was great. But like I've said, I like the world and the world building more than I like the plot. I think the plot's good, I think the characters and shit are good, but I feel like I don't need more. But if I read it, I'll probably really like it. But that spice was good shit. It was like, I got what I wanted. So yeah, that's what I liked about Dune.